this concept of fasting, right, or skipping meals,
Yeah.
right? Again, this leads back to point number one of eat less, move more, right? And we're moving more in the form of cardiorespiratory activity or more cardiovascular-based activity, which it can and will become very catabolic at a certain point. Is sending that signal to the body to shed things, to downregulate, to move into low power mode, right? And you can train yourself to be very efficient at that without losing muscle mass and stay very metabolically active and burn hot if you're planned correctly and you're getting enough of the nutrients that you need. So you're basically underfed and now overspending energy. You're running that gas tank on empty every time and going into debt, right? So moving to the next one being fasting, that's an easier way, that's a really good way to further the problem, right? So we've done some stuff on intermittent fasting. We've talked about that before, but that the whole idea, where people have their heads wrapped around that is there's some magic in the fasting process and skipping meals or only eating during certain windows of time or periods of time during the day. So skipping meals presents a whole downstream effect leading back to what we were just talking about in point number one. But let's talk about the fasting piece now and kind of what's going on there, what people think is going on, which as compared to what might really be going on, and maybe how that's been, the confusion has been compounded through some of the things people have been hearing over the last few years with I would say probably over the last 5 to 10 years where it's starting to get a little bit more popular.
Yeah, intermittent fasting is definitely one that people pick up right away. And I think here's the scenario how it typically happens. We have someone who wants to eat less or lose weight or they want to lose weight and they know they need to eat less. And the idea that comes across their social media feed is some type of fasting, intermittent fasting. Okay, I'm not going to eat breakfast. I'm going to skip breakfast. I'm only going to have lunch and dinner. And initially, I'm starting to lose some weight. The number on the scale is going down. Maybe I'm starting to slim down a little bit. This is working. And what has actually happened is you have unconsciously entered into a caloric deficit. You have lopped off some calories, and now you are eating less. Where it doesn't work is when somebody then, they don't eat breakfast, and then they're eating the same amount of calories in that, 8-hour window. So what happens is we're eating less calories. We don't understand that it is just the eating less calories that is why we're losing weight. We begin to think, okay, well, there is this fasting period where my cells are regenerating and there's autophagy going on. And
that's happening anyway.
It's cleaning out my digestive system and I'm thinking more clearly. Maybe you're thinking more clearly because you stopped eating like a muffin for breakfast. But that's somewhat besides the point. Therefore, this magic fasting period, some is good, more must be better. I need to fast even more. Once I hit that plateau point, now I just need to fast even more. Now I need to go to some wacky, 18-6, or I need to do a 24-hour fast once a month. Like we start digging ourselves into this greater hole, and then we struggle to get in the actual nutrients that we need in this small window of time that we're allowing ourselves to eat.
So Stephen, what do you think is the biggest struggle for most of your clients to do initially when they're trying to track their calories? What thing do they struggle to do the most?
Get in enough protein.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you think it's easy to eat, let's say you're a 200-pound person or a 150-pound person and you're trying to get that amount of protein. Have you guys ever seen what 150 grams of protein looks like in one bowl?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of protein to eat in one bowl.
Yeah. So you've skipped the frequency of the meals that you're eating. You're trying to cram it into this small window.
Yeah.
If you go back to the first thing we talked about, and you're already under eating, you're already under your maintenance, or you've been in a deficit for a long time, your body's adapted to that, and now you're going to this fasting, which then puts you further into caloric deficit, known or unknown, like consciously or unconsciously. Now we got to talk about what else are you missing? And that is the biggest point I would make about fasting for people in general is they understand the caloric deficit piece. Yes, and they're getting some subjective feedback about their mental clarity, or I think a lot of it has probably more to do with the control that they have, that they've found in this process for themselves, and they're kind of winning.
I've got a plan.
The scale is showing, the things that I needed to show, those kind of things. And when you do that, invariably, you're probably going to be cutting out a lot of extra stuff that you weren't eating before. You mentioned like the muffin for breakfast. Muffins aren't inherently unhealthy, but if you're not balancing that with the other things that you have, like that's probably not a great choice. You're leaving some things on the table. The bigger thing is like people not meeting their protein needs. That's one of the biggest problems we're going to find, or challenges we're going to find with people in general, fasting or not fasting, cardio or not cardio.
With a regular eating window,
caloric
people still
deficit,
struggle to do it.
Or no caloric deficit. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, the general recommendation, and this is agreed upon, this isn't arguable, that if your goal is to build and or maintain muscle mass that you have, you need to be getting a gram per pound of your target goal weight, right? Whatever that is. So to your point, like if you're a 180 pounder and you're looking to build and maintain muscle, then you should be targeting 180 grams of protein per day. Most people coming into this are nowhere near that to begin with. So now we're limiting our window to 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day in an 8-hour period, trying to get 180 grams of protein in that day. Like let's just talk about that. Like how many grams of protein in an ounce of let's just say chicken?
What would that be? Like
it's about 8 grams.
It's like 5 to 6 grams. Right?
It's about 8 grams, right? So let's call it 8 grams. Right. So
somewhere in that range. Yeah, we'll call it 5 to 10.
I always go by 4 ounces.
Yeah, because then we think about the different cuts.
It depends on the cut, right? Like how much fat's there or whatever. But let's call it 8, right? Okay. So if you need 180 grams of that, right, in a day, how much chicken do you need to eat per meal if you're doing it over 3 meals? So if it's 108, so you would need basically, right, what's 180 divided by 3?
60.
So you need 60. You need 60 grams of protein from your chicken coming in at every meal.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a lot.
So then break that down. Yeah, you're going to look, that's a lot of chicken that you've got to be pounding.
7 ounces per meal, approximately.
Right. So,
some 7 to 8 ounces.
And who's doing that? Right? Who I do that. Like I'm standing there, like, and CeCe standing at the scale, right? Like she's shoveling that in there. She's meal prepping on a nightly and daily basis to get herself out the door the next day. Like she knows what that is. Okay, so if you're trying to put all that, if you ever tried to eat, so people generally don't eat that much at one sitting. You put that in there, protein is filling, right? If you're even just trying to make that, then what else aren't you eating, right? Where are you getting your carbohydrate from? How much carbohydrate? How much fat are you getting? Where are you getting that from? Where does that fit in? And is it reasonable to think that you're going to be able to do this sustainably over a period of time where you are consistently, the most important word in all this, hitting that 180 grams on a daily basis to stay at maintenance and or build muscle? The answer to that question for the majority of people out there is no, it is not. Ask me how I know, because we see this happening all the time. That is not to say that it cannot be done and that people aren't doing it, but the percentage of people that are actually being successful with that is very low. It may be the influencer that you see on Instagram on a daily basis who's able to do this and has hacked their way through figuring out how to make that work for them. Where are they getting that protein from? If it's 180 grams and they can't do that much protein at a sitting, how much are they getting from supplementary protein powder? I'm not saying that's bad, but like, what do those ratios look like? And what have you set yourself up for in terms of sustainability? I don't think it's a good long-term success plan.
And I think even from like a psychological, and there's even like a hormone perspective as well of like what this teaches of almost like, we talked about like restrict and binge eating. And so like, I can even think of that when there's days when I haven't eaten enough and I'm home cooking dinner and you're like cooking your dinner, but you're just starving while you're doing it. What are you going to grab? You're going to go grab that bag of chips in the fridge or in the cupboard, right? You're not going to go grab a whole chicken breast and munch on that when you make dinner, right? So I think that's also makes it even harder to get through that macronutrient breakdown that we want, because you're going to just binge and eat and just go ravenous. And that's where you're almost talking about the people eating the same amount of calories, even though they're restricting their window.